Olivia Chen kept her eyes fixed on the ground as she moved through the bustling corridors of Pinecrest Academy. At 15, she was once again the unfamiliar face in a sea of established friendships and social circles. This marked her fourth school in just 3 years, a consequence of her mother's work as a diplomatic consultant that kept their family constantly relocating across the country. Each move meant another exhausting reset. Learning new schedules, new teachers' names, new, unwritten social rules that seemed obvious to everyone but her. Standing at 5'2", with a slender build, straight jet-black hair that fell just past her shoulders, and rectangular glasses that partially obscured her dark brown eyes, Olivia had perfected the art of blending into the background. She'd learned that attracting attention at a new school rarely led to anything positive, especially during those crucial first months. What her new classmates at Pinecrest couldn't possibly know, what no one at any of her previous schools had initially discovered, was that Olivia had been training in Taekwondo since she was 8 years old, achieving her third-degree black belt by age 14. Her mother, a former Olympic alternate in the sport, had insisted she learn proper self-defense techniques from an early age. 7 years of disciplined practice had transformed Olivia into an exceptional martial artist with remarkable speed, precise technique, and the ability to remain composed under pressure. She had competed in national junior championships twice, placing in the top 3 both times. Yet Olivia never volunteered this information about herself. The true essence of martial arts is respect and restraint, her mother would remind her. A skilled practitioner knows that fighting is the absolute last option. This philosophy, combined with her perpetual status as the new kid, meant Olivia instinctively tried to avoid standing out. Pinecrest Academy was an imposing 3-story structure located in a wealthy suburban neighborhood, housing nearly 1,500 students segregated into clearly defined social hierarchies that Olivia had quickly identified within her first week. By day 10, she had already mapped the school's unsafe territories: the secluded courtyard behind the science wing, the far end of the cafeteria dominated by upperclassmen, and particularly the west corridor near the gymnasium where the school's self-appointed royalty held dominion. This exclusive social circle was led by Mackenzie Wallace, a junior with perfectly highlighted blonde hair, designer clothes, and a sweet smile that transformed into something venomous the moment teachers turned their backs. Her primary followers consisted of Jade Cooper, captain of the volleyball team, whose aggressive personality extended well beyond the court, and Ryan Matthews, a tall, lean boy with calculating blue eyes who seemed to derive genuine pleasure from orchestrating social humiliations. They moved through Pinecrest as if the building existed solely for their entertainment, and most students, and even some faculty, seemed to tacitly accept this arrangement. Olivia had heard warnings about Mackenzie's group before she'd even received her class schedule on her first day. Stay invisible around Mackenzie and her friends. A friendly sophomore named Zoe had cautioned her between classes. They need someone to target each semester to maintain their reputation. Last term, they cyberbullied a girl so badly she had to switch to homeschooling. For her first 2 weeks, Olivia had successfully remained beneath their radar. She took circuitous routes between classes, spent lunch periods in quiet corners of the library, and maintained such a low profile that even her teachers sometimes overlooked her during attendance. But invisibility, as she had discovered at previous schools, had a limited effectiveness. The trouble began, as it inevitably does, with something seemingly inconsequential. Olivia was rushing to make it to her Spanish class on time, arms laden with textbooks, when she turned a corner and nearly collided with Jade. "Watch where you're going, freak!" she snapped, giving Olivia a dismissive once-over that felt like being scanned by a predator. "Sorry," Olivia mumbled, sidestepping quickly and trying to continue on her way. "Hold up," Jade called after her. "You're that new girl, right? What's your name again?" Olivia hesitated before answering without making eye contact. "Olivia. Olivier," Jade repeated, drawing out each syllable mockingly. "Maybe get some glasses that actually help you see where you're walking next time." Olivia could feel Jade's judgmental stare burning into her back as she hurried away, her stomach tightening with the familiar sensation of being singled out. She recognized the evaluating look in Jade's eyes. She'd encountered it before, at other schools, the look of someone assessing whether you'd make a suitable target. The next day, Olivia's carefully organized binder was knocked from her hands as she stood arranging her locker. She glanced up to see Ryan walking away, laughing with a group of his friends. "My bad," he called back with exaggerated innocence. "Must have been the wind." 3 days later, it was Mackenzie herself, sliding into the seat beside Olivia in the art classroom when she thought it would be safe to work on her project instead of hiding in the library. "So you're the latest charity enrollment," she said conversationally, as though they were already acquainted. "Olivia from nowhere important." Olivia kept her attention fixed on her sketchbook. "Just trying to finish my assignment." Mackenzie smiled at her own perceived cleverness. "Here's the thing, new girl. Pinecrest operates according to certain unwritten rules, and the most important one is understanding exactly where you belong in the ecosystem. And your place isn't here among the normal students. Your place is, well, we haven't quite decided yet, but don't worry. We'll determine that for you soon enough." Olivia felt her body reflexively tensing, instinctively preparing for confrontation the way it did before competition. She consciously relaxed her muscles, focusing on controlled breathing techniques her coach had taught her. "This isn't the dojang. This isn't a tournament. You cannot engage here." "Thanks for the orientation," she said flatly, gathering her supplies. "But I can figure out my own social standing." Mackenzie's hand shot out, gripping Olivia's wrist with surprising strength. Not enough to cause pain, but firmly enough to communicate dominance. "That's not quite how things work around here." For a fraction of a second, Olivia mentally calculated the exact movements required to break that grip, how easily she could execute a wrist lock that would have Mackenzie gasping in shock, how quickly she could shift into a defensive stance that would make the other girl reconsider her approach entirely. Instead, she did what everyone expected from the quiet new student. She pulled her arm away and hastily exited the classroom, the sound of Mackenzie's satisfied laughter following her into the hallway. The harassment intensified from that point forward. Her projects mysteriously disappeared from classrooms. Her locker was repeatedly jammed or found with crude notes taped inside. Whispers and stares tracked her movements through hallways. Fabricated rumors circulated about why she had transferred schools mid-year. Unflattering comments about her appearance, her clothes, and her reluctance to speak up in class became commonplace. During lectures, she would occasionally feel something hit the back of her head when teachers were writing on the board, usually crumpled paper or erasers, sometimes items that left marks on her clothing. None of this was unfamiliar territory for Olivia, and nothing she couldn't endure. She maintained her solitary routine, completed her assignments without drawing attention, and concentrated on surviving each day without incident. In the evenings, she would practice her forms and techniques in their basement that her mother had equipped with training mats and a heavy bag, channeling her frustrations into precise kicks and strikes, reminding herself why engaging with bullies was counterproductive. It never resolves the situation, it only escalates matters. It's exactly the reaction they're hoping to provoke. But Mackenzie and her followers appeared to interpret Olivia's non-engagement as an additional challenge to overcome. They were accustomed to eliciting emotional responses, tears, anger, pleading for mercy. Olivia's quiet stoicism clearly aggravated them, compelling them to push harder in pursuit of her breaking point. 4 weeks into the semester, Olivia found herself cornered in the West Corridor after most students had already departed. She'd stayed late to complete a chemistry lab with her assigned partner, and the hallways were largely deserted. She spotted them approaching, Mackenzie leading with Jade and Ryan flanking her like ceremonial guards, but the building's layout left her with no escape route. "Well, well," Mackenzie said, her voice echoing slightly in the empty corridor. "If it isn't Olivia Nobody, all by herself." Olivia tightened her grip on her backpack strap. "I need to get home. My mom's waiting for me." "Do you hear that?" Mackenzie looked at her companions with exaggerated concern. "She needs to get home to Mommy, probably so they can cry together about how nobody likes the weird new girl." "I've watched her in PE," Jade interjected. "She always changes in the bathroom stall." She smirked cruelly. "Probably ashamed of how scrawny and pathetic she looks without clothes." Olivia felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment. She did indeed change privately, not from shame, but because she didn't want anyone to notice the defined muscles that would reveal her athletic background. "Please just let me through," she said, struggling to keep her voice steady. "Or what exactly?" Ryan stepped closer, invading her personal space. "What do you think you're going to do about it?" "Nothing," Olivia told herself. "I'm going to do absolutely nothing, because that's what I always do." That had been the protocol at her previous school and the one before that. "Maintain a low profile, don't create complications. We'll be relocating again soon anyway." Hey there, viewers. If you're enjoying this story about standing up to bullies, hit that like button right now. Have you ever wanted to reveal a hidden talent to someone who underestimated you? Share your experience in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more compelling stories that will make you think twice about judging others by their appearance. Now, back to Olivia's confrontation. Except this time, her mother had assured her they would remain in this location until she graduated. This wasn't a temporary situation she could simply endure until the next move. This was her reality for the foreseeable future. "I just want to go home," she repeated, hating how vulnerable she sounded. Mackenzie moved directly in front of her, completely blocking her path. "You know what I think your problem is, Olivia? You believe you're somehow superior to us, walking around all silent and judgmental, like you're too good to even acknowledge our existence." "I don't think that at all," Olivia protested. "Liar," Ryan hissed. "Everyone notices how you avoid looking at people, like you think making eye contact with the rest of us would contaminate you." This accusation was completely unfounded. Olivia deliberately avoided eye contact with everyone as a strategy to remain unremarkable. But she knew the truth was irrelevant at this point. They had already determined who she was and what treatment she deserved. "Move!" she said with slightly more assertiveness this time. "Make me," Mackenzie challenged, taking another step toward her. And then Jade was behind her, uncomfortably close, and Olivia felt hands reaching toward her backpack. "Maybe what she needs is a proper Pinecrest welcome ritual," Jade suggested with malicious enthusiasm. "Show her exactly how we treat stuck-up new girls who think they're too good for us." Olivia experienced a sudden clarity washing over her consciousness. Time appeared to decelerate as she felt Jade's hands moving from her backpack toward her shoulders and neck. Without conscious decision, years of training instantly taking command. She pivoted smoothly, capturing Jade's wrist in a grip that caused the taller girl's eyes to widen in astonishment. In one continuous motion, she twisted Jade's arm behind her back, using her own momentum to propel her forcefully against the wall of lockers. "What the?" Mackenzie began, but couldn't complete her exclamation because Olivia had already released. Jade, who slumped against the lockers in shock and shifted her attention to the ringleader. She moved with a speed that seemed impossible for someone of her stature, executing a perfectly timed sweep that took Mackenzie's legs out from beneath her. The self-proclaimed Queen of Pinecrest landed hard on her back, the impact forcing the air from her lungs in a pained gasp. Ryan, witnessing his friends neutralized in mere seconds, charged at Olivia with an enraged shout. She sidestepped with practiced precision, redirecting his forward momentum and using a hip throw technique to flip him over. He crashed to the floor beside Mackenzie with an impact that reverberated through the empty hallway. The entire confrontation had lasted approximately 8 seconds. Olivia stood calmly among the fallen bullies, her breathing controlled and even, her stance balanced and ready. 7 years of disciplined training had rendered these movements as natural to her as walking. "Don't ever put your hands on me again," she stated, her voice low but unwavering. "Don't speak to me. Don't approach me. Leave me alone." Jade was the first to recover, pushing herself away from the lockers, her face flushed with a combination of physical discomfort and profound humiliation. "You're completely insane," she sputtered. "No," Olivia corrected, adjusting her glasses with remarkable composure. "I'm extensively trained. There's a significant difference." She stepped over Mackenzie, who was still struggling to regain her breath, and continued down the corridor. Only after she had exited the building and felt the late afternoon sunlight on her face did she allow herself to process what had just transpired. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the surge of adrenaline and the release of weeks of accumulated tension. "Mom is going to be so disappointed," she thought. Yet deep down, she understood her mother would recognize the situation for what it was. This wasn't about showing off or initiating conflict. This was legitimate self-defense against physical intimidation. What Olivia didn't realize was that they hadn't been alone in that corridor. Zoe, the sophomore who had initially warned her about Mackenzie's group, had been returning from a club meeting and had witnessed the entire confrontation from around the corner. By the following morning, the incident had spread throughout Pinecrest Academy like wildfire, growing more dramatic and embellished with each retelling. Olivia arrived at school to discover people openly staring at her, conversations abruptly halting when she passed by, but the atmosphere had fundamentally changed. There was no mockery in these glances, no cruel amusement or disdain. Instead, she observed something entirely new: respect, admiration, and a considerable degree of cautious fear. "Is it true?" Zoe cornered her before first period, eyes wide. With excitement, "Did you really take down all 3 of them without breaking a sweat?" Olivia felt her stomach constrict with anxiety. "I'd rather not discuss it. People are saying you're like some kind of secret martial arts prodigy." Another student she'd never spoken to chimed in enthusiastically, "That you actually flipped. Ryan, completely over your head. That's not exactly accurate." "Mackenzie is telling everyone she tripped accidentally," a junior boy added. "But Jade's got a massive bruise on her wrist, and Ryan can barely turn his neck without wincing." Olivia closed her eyes momentarily, trying to center herself. This was precisely the scenario she had hoped to avoid. Becoming the focal point of attention, the subject of exaggerated rumors, the central topic of school gossip. But there was no reversing what had occurred. She navigated through the morning in a dreamlike state, surrounded by whispers and curious glances. By lunchtime, she had heard at least 7 different versions of the confrontation, each more sensationalized than the last. According to some accounts, she had rendered all 3 bullies unconscious with pressure point techniques. Others claimed she had formal training with the military. One particularly imaginative freshman was informing anyone who would listen that Olivia had competed in underground fighting tournaments across Asia. Most notably, however, Mackenzie, Jade, and Ryan were conspicuously absent from their usual prominent locations. They weren't commanding attention in the cafeteria from their customary table, weren't strutting through hallways between classes with their usual entourage. It was as if they had completely vanished from the school's social landscape. Olivia was eating lunch alone, picking disinterestedly at her food while trying to ignore the persistent stares when she sensed someone slide onto the bench across from her. Looking up, she found Mackenzie sitting there, but not with her customary confidence and superiority. Her shoulders were hunched defensively, her eyes downcast, a distinctive bruise forming at the base of her throat where she had impacted the floor. "What do you want?" Olivia asked, immediately defensive. Mackenzie glanced around, visibly uncomfortable with the dozens of curious eyes observing their interaction. "I just wanted to say, what happened yesterday was out of line." "On your part," Olivia finished for her, "and it won't happen again if you and your friends stay away from me." Mackenzie nodded slowly, accepting this assessment. "That's reasonable." She hesitated, then added in a quieter voice, "Where did you learn to fight like that?" Despite her better judgment, Olivia felt a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. "My mom started teaching me when I was 8. I've been competing in taekwondo tournaments since I was 10 and reached my 3rd-degree black belt last year." Mackenzie's eyes widened appreciably. "Seriously, that's actually really impressive." An announcement crackled over the school's PA system at that moment. "Olivia Chen, please report to Principal Hargrove's office immediately." Olivia. Chen to the principal's office. Olivia sighed resignedly. She'd been anticipating this summons. "I guess someone reported what happened," she said, gathering her belongings. "It wasn't me," Mackenzie replied quickly. "And Jade and Ryan didn't say anything either. None of us told anyone." Olivia studied her face carefully, searching for deception, but Mackenzie's expression seemed genuinely earnest. "Thanks, I suppose." As she made her way to the administrator's office, Olivia mentally prepared for the worst possible outcome. Physical altercations on school property typically resulted in automatic suspension at most institutions, potentially even expulsion. Her parents would be contacted. There would be discussions about conflict resolution strategies and appropriate behavior. She had experienced this process before at a previous school, when she had eventually retaliated after enduring months of persistent bullying. The irony was that the instigators had received minimal consequences beyond stern verbal warnings. Principal Hargrove was an imposing woman with cropped silver hair and penetrating hazel eyes. She gestured for Olivia to take the seat facing her desk. "Miss Chen," she began authoritatively, "I've received concerning reports about a physical incident yesterday afternoon." Olivia took a measured breath. "Yes, ma'am." "Would you care to explain exactly what transpired?" Olivia recounted the events truthfully, neither embellishing details nor making excuses. She explained how Mackenzie, Jade, and Ryan had been systematically harassing her since her arrival. She described being cornered in the West Corridor and how Jade had attempted to physically intimidate her. She acknowledged using her martial arts training defensively. "I understand that fighting violates school policy," she concluded, "and I'm prepared to accept whatever disciplinary action you consider appropriate. However, I want to clarify that I didn't initiate this confrontation, and I only responded with the level of force I deemed necessary to protect myself from 3 people who had me surrounded." Principal Hargrove had listened without interruption, her expression revealing nothing of her thoughts. Now she leaned forward, hands clasped together on her desk. "Miss Chen, are you aware that we installed security cameras in all major hallways following an incident last semester?" Olivia's hopes plummeted. "No, ma'am." "Well, we did, and I've carefully reviewed the footage from yesterday's incident." The principal reached for a remote control and turned toward a monitor mounted on her office wall. "Would you like to see the recording?" Without awaiting a response, she pressed play. The slightly grainy security footage clearly captured Olivia being cornered by the 3 students, showed Jade's hands moving toward her from behind, showed Olivia's efficient self-defense techniques that neutralized all 3 aggressors without inflicting serious injury. The entire incident, exactly as Olivia had described it, was documented in the surveillance video. Principal Hargrove paused the recording. Physical intimidation and bullying are serious violations of Pinecrest Academy's Code of Conduct, Miss Chen. All 3 students have received 3-day suspensions, and Miss Cooper is facing additional disciplinary measures for her attempt to physically restrain you without consent. Olivia blinked in astonishment. I'm not being punished for defending yourself against unwanted physical contact and intimidation. Certainly not. Principal Hargrove's expression softened marginally. Though I would appreciate it if you would consider less dramatic methods of self-defense in future situations, perhaps alerting a faculty member about harassment before it escalates to physical confrontation. Yes, ma'am, Olivia responded, profound relief washing over her. That said, the principal continued, your martial arts abilities are quite remarkable. Our school's anti-bullying initiative could benefit from someone with your expertise. Perhaps you'd consider volunteering as a peer instructor for a self-defense workshop. It might provide a constructive channel for your considerable skills. Olivia felt a genuine smile spread across her face for the first time in weeks. I would actually enjoy that opportunity very much. When Olivia returned to her classes, the whispers and stares continued, but their nature had fundamentally transformed. News of the suspended bullies had circulated alongside rumors that Olivia had been asked to teach self-defense techniques rather than facing disciplinary action. By the final bell, 5 different girls had approached her about learning the defensive maneuver she had used against Jade. The most significant shift became apparent the following week when Mackenzie, Jade, and Ryan returned from their suspensions. They moved through the hallways with diminished presence, avoiding direct eye contact with Olivia whenever their paths crossed. Jade, in particular, maintained a considerable distance, staring intently at the floor whenever Olivia was nearby. But on Thursday, something unexpected occurred. Olivia was eating lunch with Zoe and several other students who had recently befriended her when Mackenzie approached their table alone. The conversation immediately ceased as everyone observed her warily. Could I speak with you privately? She asked Olivia. After a moment's hesitation, Olivia nodded. I'll be right back, she assured her new friends. She followed Mackenzie to a relatively secluded corner of the cafeteria, maintaining a cautious distance between them. What is it? Mackenzie fidgeted, uncomfortably, clearly struggling to maintain her composure. I just wanted to offer a proper apology for everything that happened. What we did was completely unacceptable. It wasn't the most eloquent expression of remorse, but the embarrassed flush creeping up Mackenzie's neck suggested genuine sincerity. Okay, Olivia replied simply. That's it? Just okay? What am I supposed to say? That all is forgiven? I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet. Mackenzie nodded slowly, accepting this response. That's fair. During my suspension, I've been reflecting on why I behave the way I do, and I'm not proud of my actions. You shouldn't be, Olivia agreed frankly. I know. She paused, briefly before continuing. My mom, she's kind of relentless, always pushing me to be at the top of the social hierarchy, to have the right friends, to maintain the perfect image. She was the queen bee in high school, and she expects me to follow the same path. Olivia hadn't anticipated this level of self-awareness from Mackenzie. She studied the other girl's expression, recognizing vulnerability that was usually carefully concealed beneath layers of practiced superiority. You don't have to perpetuate that cycle, she said finally. You can choose a different path. I wouldn't even know where to begin, Mackenzie admitted candidly. Olivia considered her carefully. Well, for starters, you could assist me with something. I'm organizing a self-defense workshop for the anti-bullying initiative next week. Having a volunteer for demonstration purposes would be helpful. Mackenzie's eyebrows arched in surprise. You want my help after everything that happened? It's not about you specifically, Olivia clarified. It's about helping other students learn to protect themselves, and perhaps it might help you understand how it feels to be on the receiving end of intimidation for a change. A gradual smile spread across Mackenzie's face. You're actually kind of intimidating, you know that? Good, Olivia responded with a small smile of her own. Remember that feeling the next time you consider targeting someone just because they're new or different. The subsequent weeks brought unexpected changes to Pinecrest Academy that no one could have anticipated. The Anti-Bullying Initiative's self-defense workshop saw participation numbers triple, with Olivia leading training sessions twice weekly. Mackenzie, true to her word, appeared as a volunteer, allowing herself to be used for demonstrations that left students applauding enthusiastically. More surprisingly, Ryan joined the school's photography club, where his eye for composition, previously used primarily for documenting embarrassing moments, found a more constructive creative outlet. Jade, after a serious conversation with the volleyball coach about team leadership and respecting others, became almost excessively polite, offering awkward apologies to students she had previously mistreated. Olivia discovered something she had never experienced at any of her previous schools: genuine friendships with peers who knew her strengths and respected her for those abilities, rather than fearing her or expecting her to conceal them. Zoe and several members from the self-defense workshop became regular companions during lunch periods, and soon Olivia found herself included in study groups and weekend social activities. One afternoon, approximately 5 weeks after the hallway incident, Olivia was walking home when she heard rapid footsteps approaching from behind. She turned to find Jade hurrying to catch up with her. "Hey," she said, slightly breathless. "Do you mind if I walk with you for a bit? I'm heading in this direction too." Olivia nodded cautiously. They walked in uncomfortable silence for several minutes before Jade finally spoke again. "I never properly apologized to you," she said, "for trying to, She trailed off, her face reddening with embarrassment. "Intimidate me physically," Olivia supplied. "Yeah." Jade appeared genuinely remorseful. "It was completely inappropriate, really wrong, and I'm genuinely sorry." "Why did you do it?" Olivia asked, genuinely curious about her motivation. Jade remained quiet for an extended moment. "Honestly, because I thought I could get away with it, because Mackenzie and Ryan were watching, and I wanted to impress them. Because that's what we did to students like you." "Students like me?" "Students who seemed vulnerable, who wouldn't fight back." Jade grimaced visibly. "Except you did fight back, and you absolutely should have. What I did, what we all did, it wasn't acceptable on any level." Olivia studied her as they continued walking. "No, it wasn't, but I appreciate your apology." "My younger brother joined your self-defense workshop," Jade mentioned after. Another lengthy silence. "Connor, he's a freshman." Olivia nodded in recognition. She remembered Connor, a reserved boy with the same auburn hair as Jade, but none of her aggressive confidence. "He has good instincts and coordination." "Yeah. Well, I don't want him to ever feel like he can't protect himself if necessary." Jade kicked absent-mindedly at a pebble on the sidewalk. "I don't want him to be afraid of people like I was." "Then set a better example," Olivia suggested straightforwardly. Jade nodded thoughtfully. "I'm definitely trying." When they reached the intersection where their paths diverged, Jade tentatively extended her hand. No lingering resentment. Olivia hesitated briefly before accepting the handshake. "Working on it." That evening, as Olivia practiced her forms in the basement with her mother, executing precise kicks against the heavy bag, she recounted the entire series of events: how she had been targeted by bullies, how she had eventually defended herself, and how the school's social dynamics had shifted dramatically since then. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you immediately," she concluded. I was worried you'd be disappointed that I used my training that way." Her mother adjusted Olivia's stance slightly, the way she had been doing since Olivia was 8 years old. "Olivia, I never taught you Taekwondo so you could dominate others. I taught you so you would never have to feel powerless or afraid. But you always emphasized that physical confrontation should be the absolute last option," Olivia reminded her. "And was it?" her mother inquired. "Had you exhausted all other alternatives?" Olivia reflected on the weeks of avoidance strategies, of maintaining a low profile, of enduring persistent harassment without complaint. "Yes," she acknowledged finally, "it truly was the last resort available to me." Her mother nodded with approval. "Then you applied your training exactly as intended. You protected yourself without inflicting unnecessary harm." She held up the focus mitts. "Now show me that roundhouse kick combination again." As the semester progressed, the impact of what students now referred to as the corridor confrontation continued to reverberate throughout Pinecrest Academy. The administration implemented enhanced anti-bullying policies with serious consequences. The self-defense workshops became one of the most popular extracurricular activities. Mackenzie, who had never demonstrated much academic ambition previously, discovered an unexpected aptitude for conflict mediation. But for Olivia, the most meaningful transformation was deeply personal. For the first time in her school experience, she moved through her days without concealing her true identity. She still wore her rectangular glasses, still struggled with her straight hair that refused to hold any style, still preferred studying to parties, but she no longer hunched her shoulders or avoided direct engagement with others. She stood confidently, spoke assertively, and allowed her strength to manifest in ways that transcended physical demonstrations. On the final day before spring break, Olivia discovered a small package inside her locker. Inside was a keychain featuring a miniature black belt and a note that read, "To the girl who taught Pinecrest what real strength looks like. Thanks for the wake-up call. MJ and R." Olivia smiled as she attached it to her backpack. She had arrived at Pinecrest Academy, expecting to remain invisible, to simply survive the next 2 years without creating waves or drawing attention. Instead, she had found her authentic voice, her inner confidence, and a community where she genuinely belonged. As she headed toward the cafeteria to join her friends, Olivia reflected on everything that had transformed since that confrontation in the West Corridor. The bullies had certainly targeted the wrong student, but perhaps in an unexpected way, they had targeted exactly the right one, the one who could demonstrate to them and to the entire school that true strength wasn't about intimidation or creating fear, but about standing firmly for what's right, protecting yourself and others, and having the courage to embrace your authentic self without apology. Thank you for watching our story about finding inner strength and standing up to bullies. If this resonated with you, we'd love for you to join our community by hitting that subscribe button right now. What lesson did you take away from Olivia's journey? Did her story remind you of an experience from your own life? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. We read every single one and truly value hearing how these stories connect with your own experiences. Remember, sometimes our greatest strengths remain hidden until we're challenged to reveal them. Until next time, stay strong, stay authentic, and never underestimate your own power.